Chapter 22. They did not return to the palace until the next day. Zoran wanted to make sure Abby was well rested before transforming again and flying such a long distance. Of course, once Zoran showed her how to transform into her dragon, Zoran's dragon had other ideas, and it involved a chase and capture. It was well after dark by the time they arrived, and Abby was weak with fatigue. As soon as they landed on their balcony, Zoran swept Abby into his arms before she collapsed into a puddle on the cold stone flooring. He took her to the bath, where he bathed her gently before putting her to bed. Abby remembered very little of it. It was late morning before Abby woke up to banging on the outer door of the suite of rooms she and Zoran shared. Abby barely had time to get a silk robe on before the doors burst open, and Trisha, Carmen, Ariel, and Kara, with their respective new symbiot pets, came trotting in. "Good morning," Kara said brightly as she laid a tray full of food on a low table. "We thought you'd be hungry." "No, you wanted an excuse to find out what happened," Trisha said with a grin as she picked up a piece of fruit from the tray and bit into it. "Damn, they have some good fruit here. So, tell us all the juicy details. I heard you fried Ben Kumain. How'd you do that?" Ariel said, as she laid another tray with cups and a large pot of something that smelled suspiciously like coffee down on another small table. Carmen didn't say a word, but moved over to a chair and sat down quietly, looking curiously at Abby. Abby glanced at the women who had become more like sisters to her. Accepting a cup of coffee from Ariel and a plate of food from Kara, Abby sank down onto the soft cushions of the sofa and pulled her bare feet up under her. Pushing her hair away from her face, she took a sip of coffee before replying, "I can turn into a dragon." Abby waited as the news of what she had just revealed sank into the women sitting around her. She glanced at each one under her lashes as she sipped more of her coffee. Ariel and Trisha were staring at her with their mouths hanging open. Kara had a devious grin full of mischief on her face, and Carmen studied her with an expression on her face that Abby couldn't read. "That is so cool," Kara said excitedly, her voice rising as her excitement grew. "How did you do it? Can I do it? Oh my God, I have to be able to do it. I could totally drive Traylon out of his ever-loving fucking mind. Oh, Abby, you have got to teach me how. Please, please, please." The three other women glanced from Kara to Abby. Suddenly, a small chuckle filled the air, followed by uncontrollable giggling. All eyes whipped around, unable to believe where the giggling was coming from. Carmen wiped her eyes, trying to stop giggling. "Oh, Abby, please teach us. I would love to be able to give someone else hell, and I'm sure I could think of 100 different ways to do it in the form of a dragon." Soon, all the women were giggling and making up ways they could drive the men insane by switching between human and dragon and using the symbiot. Kara's was the most creative, but Carmen came up with the most devious. When Zoran walked into the room a couple of hours later and found all 5 women in hysterics, he had a bad feeling he and his brothers were in for trouble. Zoran glanced at Abby, making sure she was comfortable before he moved over to talk to his brother Mandra. It was the first time they had dined with other males since Abby's transformation and her dragon's first heat. He knew other males would be able to sense what was happening to Abby's dragon, and worried. Abby was very sexual, much more so than normal Valdier women. Her dragon would be even more so now that it was going through its first heat and would send out pheromones, letting other males know she was sexually active. Normally, women went through their first heat at a young age, and older females would help guide them through the process, picking out suitable males for the younger females with whom to enjoy their new sexual awakening. Since the females would not reproduce except with the males they would eventually mate with, it gave both the males and the females a chance to sample and enjoy each other. Zoran did not want Abby to sample or enjoy any other males. It was true, as a true mate, she wouldn't normally want another male, but he wasn't sure about her feelings while she was experiencing heat. Unfortunately, her being in heat meant other males would crave her. He had a feeling he was going to be spending a lot of time fighting off males who would think they were strong enough to take her away from him. He did not worry as much about his brothers. They seemed to be busy trying to mate with the other females who returned from Earth with him. It was all the other warriors on Valdier. "You okay, brother? You seem a little tense," Mandra asked as he handed Zoran a drink. Zoran narrowed his eyes as one of the many males who dined in the large palace dining room moved across to stand close to Abby. "Abby had her first transformation the night she escaped from Ben Kumain. Her dragon is in heat." Mandra followed Zoran's gaze, frowning. This would explain the scent I smelled the last few days." Zoran's eyes whipped around to face his brother. "You could smell her outside our rooms?" "Yes," Mandra laughed. "Her scent is very strong. I knew as soon as you were back in the palace." Zoran growled when he looked back and noticed the male had sat down next to Abby. Abby was trying to scoot further down the couch only to find another male had come up and sat down on the other side of her. "I do not envy you. I have enough problems trying to control myself around the one called Ariel. I just don't understand these human females. I let her know I wished to have sex with her, and she said I could go fuck yourself. I don't want to do it by myself. That is the whole point of me telling her I wished to have sex with her." Zoran listened with half an ear as his brother went on to discuss some of the other things Ariel had told Mandra he could do. He could feel the rage building as one of the men put his arm along the back of the couch where Abby was sitting, while the other picked up her hand and brought it to his mouth to press a kiss to her knuckles. Zoran had enough when the arm on the back of the couch moved and picked up a piece of Abby's hair to smell it. He felt his dragon snarl even as the heat began to build inside him. Abby pulled on her hand again, trying to break the surprisingly strong grip of the man who had been bothering her for the last 10 minutes. She couldn't remember his name. Where was Zoran? He had gone to talk to one of his brothers a little while ago. He should have been back by now, surely. Abby leaned forward as the other man, his name was Buddha, put his arm on the back of the couch. She was trying in vain to subtly move away from where he was rubbing his fingers along her shoulder. When he reached over and grabbed a piece of her hair, it took everything in her not to elbow him in the gut. It was one thing for Zoran to put his hands on her. It was quite another for other men. When Mr. I don't remember his name started tonguing her knuckles, she'd had enough. Standing up, Abby started to move away, only to find herself trapped between the two men, one in front and the other behind her. "Please move away," Abby said quietly, feeling very uncomfortable as more men began to move around her. "Move or die," Zoran snarled as he pushed his way into the growing circle of men surrounding Abby. Zoran wrapped his arm around Abby, growling at the men. "Mine!" Buddha stepped forward. "She is in heat. According to law, any female in heat is available to any male who wishes to satisfy her needs." Zoran thrust Abby behind his back. "She is my true mate and not subject to the laws of an unmated female." Another male growled. "I want to fuck her. Share her with us as is our custom." "Never!" Zoran snarled, his face beginning to elongate as he half shifted to his dragon. Another male reached over the couch and grabbed Abby around the waist, pulling her up and over against him. Abby screamed and tried to grab for Zoran as a pair of huge arms grabbed her from behind. Zoran whirled around, leaping over the couch and slamming his fist into the man's face. "Mine!" he roared louder. Abby soon found herself surrounded by Zoran's 4 other brothers and, to her surprise, Kara, Trisha, Carmen, and Ariel. Kara had grabbed a pair of pot lids and was holding them up in front of her. Trisha and Ariel had each grabbed a set of knives off the table and taken a defensive pose as Carmen stood straight, her arms by her side and her feet slightly parted. The expression on her face was scary, as if she were begging the men to give her an excuse to kill their asses. "Zoran, you had better get her the hell out of here until she is finished," Curizan said in a low voice, his eyes never leaving Carmen. He growled at Carmen. "Get your ass over here next to me. Now, Carmen!" Zoran moved slowly back toward the huge double doors, snarling and showing his teeth to any male who moved toward him and Abby. He pushed Abby gently behind him until they were both out the door. Once they were free of the room, Zoran turned and scooped Abby up into his arms and began running for their suite, calling for his symbiot to prepare for both of them. Slamming the door behind him, he set Abby down and bolted the door. "Go pack a few things. I need to take you away from here for a few weeks," Zoran said darkly as he moved toward their bedroom. Abby stood in stunned silence for a moment before she followed Zoran. Her gaze followed him as he moved back and forth between their closet and dresser drawers, watching as he pushed items randomly into a large bag. He looked furious as he walked quickly back and forth, muttering curses under his breath. "What the hell just happened?" Abby asked quietly. The tendons in Zoran's neck stood out as he fought to control his rage. "You are in heat." "I'm in what?" Abby asked in astonishment. Zoran looked at Abby, his face softening at the surprised look on her face. He walked over and kissed her. Sniffing deeply, he couldn't contain the low rumble of his dragon's response to her. "You are in heat, Elila. You smell so damn good all the males want to fuck you." "You can smell me?" Abby squeaked. "Oh, yes. And so can every other male within a mile radius. The first heat is the most intense, but it wouldn't matter. They would all still want to fuck you like I want to right now." Zoran moaned quietly as he pressed his hot arousal against the palm of Abby's hand. Abby blushed a bright red. "They could smell me?" she whispered, her fingers curling around Zoran's hard length. "Yes. I have to get you away from here until you are finished. Otherwise, I will be fighting off every male in the palace." "Oh,"